Good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's tuning in with us for another installment of the Women in Space Exploration Talk Series. My name is Mimi Fuchs, and I will be your host for today's outreach experience. A big mahalo to Pisces for offering such a wonderful way for us to connect with incredible women in the aerospace industry, and a big thank you to Microsoft and the Hawaii Science and Technology Museum for sponsoring this event. Today is the final installment of this week's WiSE Talk series, and we are so honored to have Dr. Yajaira Sierra Sastre with us. Dr. Sierra is going to share her path and how she started working in nanotechnology, and how nanotechnology might allow us to send rovers to outer space, to Mars and beyond. She's also going to offer us a little bit of advice about how to create opportunities for an exciting career in the aerospace industry. A little bit more about Dr. Sierra. Her background is quite incredible. She's a materials scientist and an educator with 15 years of research and development and project management experience. She obtained her doctorate in nanomaterials chemistry from Cornell and has been involved in a variety of projects that have been able to help us understand the properties of nanoscale materials and help us evaluate them and their potential for helping push forward our understanding of outer space and allow us to better explore these inhospitable environments. She's currently the project manager for NASA's Mars Spring Tires Mars Sample Return Mission, and also supports the mobility testing of Viper at NASA's Glenn Research Center at the Simulated Lunar Operations Laboratory. She also has a lot of connections to our islands of Hawaii, and she served as the Chief Science Officer for the Hawaii Space Exploration Analog and Simulation, also known as HISES, for a 4-month-long Mars analog mission. She's also extremely passionate about STEM education and aspires to be the first Puerto Rican women to fly to space. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it along. But before we do that, just remember, folks, this is an outreach experience that we really want to be positive and exciting for you. So in addition to hearing this really wonderful presentation, you have the opportunity to ask Dr. Sierra questions that you have about her work and about her career in general. If you have a question for her, please put it into the question and answer meeting chat window, and we will try to get to it after her presentation. We'll have about 20 or 30 minutes to continue the conversation after Dr. Sierra concludes. So without further ado, I'm going to pass along the screen to Dr. Sierra to begin her presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Good morning, everyone over there in Hawaii. Thank you for being with us today. I am Dr. Yajaira Sierra Sastre, and as it was mentioned, I would like to share with you my scientific adventures from the Nanoworld to planet Mars, and how we can reinvent ourselves and create opportunities for a thriving career in science. So let me share my slides.
All right, looks great.
Okay, excellent. You can find me in Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, Yajaira. So let's get started. Okay, so as it was mentioned, I am a Puerto Rican scientist. I am from the town of Arroyo, Puerto Rico. This is a eastern town in the island of Puerto Rico. And that was my play yard. That was the place, the beautiful place that inspired me to learn about the universe, to get curious. As you know, Hawaiians can tell, right? Mountains and that beautiful ocean, that beautiful nature, sky, especially during the nights, you know, the night sky. All that nature really instilled this passion for science. And I am a scientist with many suits, and I hope that I will convey that message today during my presentation. I have had diverse and multiple types of experiences throughout the course of my career, from wearing suits for clean room environments, as I can show you here in the left, to going to the field to do some geology type of expeditions, or participating in Mars analog missions, wearing simulated spacesuits, even cooking and doing some cuisines for future missions to Mars. I have also taught at the high school, from high school to university levels, and all those experiences makes Yajaira, makes me, and really set up that foundation for what is now what I'm doing right now, that is working for NASA, which was my lifelong dream, to work for NASA and work in space flight missions. So I am at NASA Glenn Research Center now. As it was mentioned, I am a project manager for space flight missions, and space flight missions that will be sent to the moon, in support robotic missions that will be sent to the south pole of the moon, and I will talk a little bit more about that. In support and to as well to establish the foundation for what will become, Artemis and all these crewed missions to Mars, because we are going back to the moon, because we are going back to the moon, but this time we are going to go and we are going to stay. And from the moon to Mars, So I will be sharing all these experiences with you today. But my career started back in 1995 when I graduated from high school, and then it was time, to grow up and decide what I was going to study. And back then, I knew that I love science. I was, as I mentioned, I was, in love with science, but I didn't exactly know what specific path I wanted to follow, or field, what the specific field I wanted to pursue. So my decision to study chemistry back then was based on the fact that, first, chemistry for me was easy. I could see molecules. I could see chemistry all around me. But it was also a field that would allow me to explore diverse opportunities in the future. I knew that with a chemistry background, I could participate. I could work in pharma, or I could teach chemical education, chemistry, or I could become a professor, or a lab chemist. So there were different types of paths that back then, all of them looked wonderful, exciting, but it was that field that I chose, because I said, better to choose a field, in my case, that then will allow me to just explore the path, and then I will choose the one that interested me the most. And throughout the undergraduate years, while I was pursuing this bachelor's degree in chemistry, I also became very interested about the art of educating and communicating science, and educating students about scientific concepts. So I went ahead and pursue as well teaching certification. So I took lots of courses in how to teach. And my first job after college was a high school chemistry teacher's job. So I went back to my hometown of Arroyo, taught high school for 1 year, also taught math for middle school students. And that was a temporary position. Jobs were very scarce and very limited at that time. So when my academic year ended, then it was the time for me to answer the question, okay, what is next? What I'm going to do next? And as I mentioned, I have always been interested in science, and that dream of becoming a scientist was still in my head. That dream of becoming a scientist was still there. So I went ahead and, as a teacher back then, started looking for research opportunities for teachers. And that's how I ended up at Stanford University as a teacher, doing research during a summer back in 2002. That was my first experience outside Puerto Rico, out of my comfort zone and place in my beautiful island. My first time, like living for months in the U.S. mainland. my first experience being fully immersed in English, because growing up in Puerto Rico in a small town, my first language is Spanish. So it was challenging in many ways, but how exciting. This was my first experience, real experience, professional experience with research at a very awesome university and research institution, and my first experience with nanotechnology. And for those of you that don't know what is nanotechnology, basically it's the field of science and technology that looks to study very small materials that we cannot see with our naked eye. I went back to Puerto Rico after that amazing experience with a grander vision. I said, you know what? I was able to overcome the language barrier. I was able to get outside my comfort zone. And I felt very confident that, you know what, I did pretty good as a researcher during those 2 months. And it was a very empowering experience. And that experience pretty much set this goal of, yes, I really want to pursue a PhD in a field of science and become a research scientist. So I went back and started knocking on doors, joined some labs, research labs in the island. And during one outreach event, and I like sharing this story because these are the coincidence, and moments that can have a lasting, can change your life forever. So this is an article that I found recently about that event of back in 2003, when researchers from NASA Glenn Research Center went to the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, and they went to inspire students. Back then, I was taking graduate courses in chemistry, trying to figure out these next steps with grad school. And they went to the university to inspire students. Astronaut Leland Melvin also visited my school, and Leland Melvin shared his career path as well as a materials engineer. So all those stories were very inspiring to me, and really set that goal of, yeah, I want to continue a career in science. I want to continue graduate school. I didn't know how to get to NASA. It was not clear to me how I would get there someday, but I saw it as a way for me to pursue even my wildest dream, that is and still is, to go to space someday. So I went ahead and listened to wonderful role models like I met at that event, like Dr. Miguel Roman, a former NASA Goddard scientist, currently founding director of the Earth from Space Institute at USRA. And I remember having this conversation with him and saying, hey, I would love to be an astronaut. I would love to work for NASA. I would like to continue graduate studies. I am a little bit nervous about the language barrier and how difficult it could be. But it was people like Miguel that really, in just that instance that I shared with him, he really encouraged me to just go ahead and go after my dreams. So I listened to people like Miguel and many other mentors and people that were very encouraging to me at those times in life where I had to make very very important decisions for my future. So I went ahead and said, well, let me just put applications out there, and ended up getting accepted at Cornell University to pursue a PhD in materials chemistry. And I wanted to continue this area of nanotechnology. Back then, I didn't know how I could connect nanotechnology and material science with space applications. But I went ahead. I just said yes to the opportunity that came my way at that moment. I had the opportunity during grad school to also work at Los Alamos National Laboratory at the Center of Integrated Nanotechnologies. So combining, that experience of being in academia and doing research in the university with doing research in one of our national labs. Amazing experience. And here you see me with one of my mentors at Los Alamos, and you also see me doing some of the lab work that I used to do as a materials mayor, right? So very fun stuff. And to tell you a little bit about the nanotechnology project that I worked on when I was in grad school, even during grad school, I decided that I wanted to work in a multidisciplinary project. Why? Because I wanted to learn as much as possible about anything I could learn. So I chose a topic, a research topic that in fact was very interdisciplinary, in the area of bio-nanofabrication, where I had to learn about biology, about these biomacromolecules, basically natural structures that we find in nature, like DNA structures or viruses or protein crystal structures that nanotechnologists back then during grad school, they were looking at these structures and they were thinking about how we can resemble these structures or use these structures as templates to organize and arrange different types of nanomaterials, small materials, inorganic materials for all sorts of applications. So what you see here to the right is a transmission electron microscopy image of a honeycomb-like patterns of gold nanoparticles. So I was working in a lab where we will basically use these natural biomolecular structures, use them as templates, and then use them to arrange, organize in a very controlled fashion, organize these nanomaterials like that are, like as small as, like 50 or less than 50 nanometers. So what you see here is that like honeycomb-like pattern basically is the pattern of nanoparticles resembling the natural structure of a protein that is found in many bacteria in nature. Awesome work, very interesting, from studying and exploring, how to arrange nanoparticles, to using these nanoparticles as catalysts to grow other types of structures like these sticks or wires that you see there. So these are scanning electron microscopy images of semiconductor nanowires. So I got to play in the lab, like making all sorts of nanomaterials, small materials with all sorts of applications, because semiconductor nanowires could be used in electronics, could be used in batteries. So those are some of the applications for these type of semiconductor nanomaterials. So very amazing work. And that work, that I simplified and summarized to you in a few slides, it was a 5-year-long effort, right? Research takes time, science takes time, discovery takes time, but how rewarding. Those were 5 of the best years of my life. And the picture that I show you here is a picture of me with my mother during my graduation, the day of my graduation ceremony. A day that I will never forget, because it was that, celebration of the resilience and the perseverance that scientists need to exercise when they partake in science. Amazing. And after graduating, I say that I had this nanotechnology toolbox after my PhD. So I told you that I was exploring and working in these interdisciplinary research projects. So I got to learn about the area of surface chemistry, how to chemically modify surfaces, to render surfaces or apply or provide surfaces with different properties. I learned about microscopy. I learned about material science. And I learned about microbiology, and all that was part of my toolbox, what I brought to the job sector. So my first job after grad school was I worked as a research scientist at a startup company, nanotechnology startup in upstate New York, where then I was looking at how to create other types of nanomaterials, such as These, like nanoneedles that you see here, or nanofibers that could be used for wound dressing applications or biomedical applications, or microspheres that could be used to detect contaminants or pollutants in water bodies. Lots of opportunities to continue growing and developing myself as a nanoscientist, a material scientist, but now in the real world, right? Looking for opportunities on how to use these materials to create new applications and provide very interesting properties to other types of materials. For instance, these images that I see that I show here, water, oil, and what you see underneath, that underneath a piece of fabric is a cotton fabric that was coated with these kind of nanoneedles structures that would give cotton that ability to repel both water and oil. And again, we were looking at nature on how we could resemble things that we already see in nature, like the lotus effect. These type of leaves that we find in water ponds that never get dirty because they have these microstructures on their leaves surfaces that help keep these leaves, give the self-cleaning ability to these type of plants and leaves. And everything was awesome, but as you can imagine, and by then, I had spent lots of times and lots of years just focusing on research. So there was a moment where I felt that I needed to find myself in the research I was doing. I had this need to also reconnect to my passion for education, my passion for science communication. So I started looking for opportunities to share more with the public what I was doing with the science that I was doing at the moment. So I started engaging with public outreach activities like this one with WiSE. And I can tell you, those experiences, when we share with the world our excitement for science, our discoveries, our research, those experiences are the ones that will fuel your career. It will give you the energy and continue helping you focus on the greater purpose, right? We are here to serve and make of this world a better place to live through science, technology, and innovation. I engage as well with things such as, translating nanotechnology articles for this magazine, translating those articles from English to Spanish so that we could also broaden our audience, right? And as I had mentioned, yes, I have always had this wild dream of going to space someday. I am still a NASA astronaut applicant. So I have applied to the NASA astronaut program 3 times. To my surprise, I have had the honor to know that I have been part of the highly qualified group of applicants, and I continue working on that dream. So in 2013, while looking for opportunities to reconnect, and as I said, finding myself in the research I was doing, trying to reconnect to these initial passions I had in life, about space and the universe, I found this opportunity to apply to the Hawaii Space Exploration Analog and Simulation, HISES, a NASA-funded program, where a scientist like me were recruited to live and work like astronauts in this geodesic dome located in Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii. So I have this really special connection with Hawaii. Hawaii was my home. Mauna Loa was my home for 4 months. And it was in this beautiful place that resembles Mars, where I was able to reconnect and get so energized about the possibility of shifting my career and refocusing my career to the area of space exploration. Amazing. So these were my crewmates. I lived with them in these conditions of confinement and isolation for 4 months. These are the small rooms inside the habitat with only 2 windows to look at the outside, eating freeze-dried foods for 4 months, and only going outside wearing simulated spacesuits to do the EVA, simulated EVA activities. We had to exercise like astronauts do in the International Space Station, and as they will have to do when they are on Mars. And we did so much research. Yeah, this was like, yes, my playground again as a scientist. A scientist doing research in a simulated mission to Mars. It was really a dream come true. We had like strict rules of usage, of water usage, as astronauts will have on Mars. And given the distance between Earth and on Mars, there was a simulated communication delay, meaning no live communication or Teams, video conferences like we are having it right now during the simulation. But what an amazing experience. It was basically my opportunity to fulfill this astronaut dream without escaping Earth, without leaving Earth, here on Earth, living that dream of being part of this Mars analog mission. Beautiful. But that was a 4-month simulation, and then I had to go back to my real life. So during that year, between high seas and what was my next career step, I taught again chemistry. Went back to college to teach. To teach chemistry to college students, and then I started looking for jobs. And I wanted a space job. I applied to so many space jobs. I applied to so many NASA jobs, and nothing. Just lots of rejections at that moment. So that's not unusual in the space sector. You will hear a lot of stories from colleagues telling you, it takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of insistence and a lot of desire to just share with colleagues, reach out to NASA professionals, and just let them know that you are really, really passionate about space exploration and that you really want to contribute to the field through NASA. So I did that. So I continue applying to NASA jobs while I was working on a job at the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing. If you don't know what's that, that's the U.S. Money Factory. So I had the opportunity to get this job not related to space, but a job that allowed me to develop project management experience, developing technologies that make our US money, paper money, more secure. Nothing related to space, but it was the job that then added to my resume those project management experiences that then eventually helped me get my dream job at NASA. So there I was developing technologies to make our money more secure. And while continue looking for opportunities and jobs at NASA, I engaged with nonprofit organizations such as POSSUM, started taking courses in geology, planetary geology, and joined teams in field expeditions. And all those diverse experiences were the ones that then set me in this path to get to the place where I am right now. As a project manager at NASA, working in spaceflight projects for the moon, for example, Viper. So I am serving as the project manager for the Viper mobility test that happens at NASA Glenn Research Center. This is NASA's first robotic rover mission to be sent to the south pole of the moon. And this rover will be the first rover with a headlight and the first rover to map the water resources at the lunar south pole. And this is very important because we need to understand what's the availability of water, how much water is in the south pole, what's the distribution of water so that we better understand how we could use and harvest this precious resource when we send astronauts to the south pole of the moon to stay. So very, very, very important work. And it has been extremely exciting. And the mobility testing, when I talk about mobility testing, what I am talking about is, checking these engineering models, right? And putting them and testing them and looking at the rover performance in simulated environments. So at NASA Glenn, we have the Simulated Lunar Operations Laboratory, or SLOPE. It's a facility, world-class facility with simulated soil, lunar soil, and with a slope, a tilted test bed that allows mobility engineers to look at rover performance in different types of conditions, in different types of simulated conditions. Really, really awesome work. Here you see one of the versions of course, I mean, the final rover won't look like this, but what you are seeing here is a moon gravity representative unit at the slope lab, and the NASA engineers working and operating that rover to get the data they need to better understand this rover performance. And from the moon to Mars, we are still celebrating, right, the successful landing of Perseverance rover on Mars. What an amazing accomplishment of engineering. And we have been celebrating and with the Perseverance team, such an amazing accomplishment. Perseverance has landed in Jezero crater. Jezero is an area of a lot of scientific interest because there was a crater filled with water, an ancient lake in that area. And this is an area where the scientists and engineers will be using Perseverance to look for signs of ancient life. And Perseverance will need to traverse very, very challenging terrain on the surface of Mars. It will traverse the terrain in that delta. It will collect samples and store some of the samples in tubes that a future mission, NASA mission, that will be sent on this decade, and a future mission will go and collect and pick up those tubes to return them to Earth. And that's the Mars sample return mission, and that's the mission I am working on right now. Basically, Perseverance is there doing the science, exploring the geology, the weather of Mars, looking for signs of ancient life, collecting samples of rock and soils in these tubes, so that another mission called the Sample Retrieval Lander mission, that mission is the one that I am part of. We will be sending the next rover to Mars to pick up those samples that Perseverance will be depositing or leaving in specific locations and bringing them back to a lander that eventually, there will be a rocket in that lander that will take these samples and bring them to Mars orbit. So that's where you see, this is the sample fetch rover. The sample fetcher will be collecting those tubes with Martian rock and soil, bringing them back to the sample retrieval lander, and then a rocket will bring those samples to Martian orbit. There will be a sample transfer, and then those samples will be returned to Earth so that scientists and geologists can look at those samples more closely, use lab facilities here on Earth to better understand, the possible origin and existence of life in the universe. And this is the sample fetch rover. And my team is focused on the tires. So we are looking at developing very durable tires, flexible tires that will be able to go, and traverse the rocky terrain on Mars to accomplish that mission of picking up these tubes containing Martian samples. We are innovating. We are looking at ways of designing, building flexible tires so that we prevent issues such as those that we found with Curiosity wheels. Curiosity wheels are rigid, and Mars is a really, really hard environment. So we are looking at ways of designing tires that will be durable and will be able and capable of traversing the rocky terrain on Mars without getting damaged. All these science adventures is what is the combination of those life experiences and adventures what makes me who I am and what has paved the way to now living my dream job at NASA as the project manager for these spaceflight missions. And as my final words, when I reflect about my career path, when I reflect about all these experiences, I have seen these common things that I would like to share with you. It's okay to be uncomfortable. When I have needed to reinvent myself, I had, it was uncomfortable to navigate a new field or a new professional opportunity. But the key to success for me was just say yes to the opportunity that come your way. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. The more uncomfortable, the more we expose ourselves to uncomfortable scenarios, the more comfortable we will become with uncertainty and just, initial or new scenarios in our lives. Let's live a simulation, like the Mars analog mission, right? Don't be afraid of reinvention. When a new opportunity comes your way, say yes, and you will learn as you do it. Okay, just live a simulation. And with living a simulation, what I mean is just practice your role. You will get better. You will gain the skills. You will be able to perform better and better as you practice your roles and skills for the job you want. Bring out the Martian within you. I also think that it's very important for us to embrace who we are, bring our authenticity to the table, to the jobs we have, to the places we serve. It has been thanks to my career background and my life experiences. I bring all that to the service of my organization. Those experiences living back in Puerto Rico where life revolves around community, I bring those lessons learned to better serve my teams, to build community with my team. So bring out the Martian within you and be a fusionary. And what is a fusionary? And with this, I will end. I went to a conference and I love this word, this term. Fusionary are the people that fuse multiple disciplines and perspectives, that work to help others achieve all they can, and that understand the fundamental importance of diversity of everything. Those leadership skills, people skills, combined with my multidisciplinary background, also the entrepreneurial startup, company experiences that I had that helped me embrace and the entrepreneurial mindset, my STEM communication skills, my passion for space and exploration have taken me to places that I never imagined that I was going to get. And what you see in the right is a picture of me during a visit to Epcot Center with the family to Disney World in Florida. And I was there standing between two exhibits, right? The mission space, that is an awesome ride. If you have not gone there, you should do it, so that you experience the high Gs of a simulated, flight to Mars. And the innovations that is an exhibit, a nanotechnology exhibit that I helped. I helped with that exhibit when I was in grad school working in nanotechnology. I helped my supervisor translating some of the content that was going to be part of that exhibit. But when I went there, I knew about innovations. I went to visit the exhibit one more time. But then when I went to Mission Space and I was waiting for my ride, they started presenting a video and I got so surprised when I saw video footage from high seas, the Mars analog mission in Hawaii. And at that moment, I realized that, wow, if it would not have been because of my willingness to just try and say yes to opportunities from fields that seem to be so disconnected, right? The nano universe, and then this macro universe space. If I would not have embraced the opportunity and said yes, I would not have been in this place realizing that, well, now my contributions in science are impacting millions of people that visit places like Epcot Center. So say yes to opportunities and don't be afraid. The future is bright. And with that, I leave you and ask any questions you may have. Thank you.
Dr. Sierra, that was such an incredible, inspiring presentation. I really particularly enjoyed that you took time to detail the different steps of your career that maybe might have seemed out of place at one point, but really have allowed you to do this job that requires you to have this kind of interdisciplinary expertise. And you talked about how, you much enjoyed you working in the lab and how, you worked in private companies and you also were doing research in labs. Now that you're at NASA and working as a project engineer, what is the best part of this job in particular?
Oh my goodness, yes. So the best part of this job is that, again, I am just living this dream job in the sense that I am able to apply my material science knowledge for the developing of these development of these tires that are made of shape memory alloy materials that have this ability to conform to the rocky terrain and be reversible, right? And don't get destroyed. And I have the ability as well to apply that background to better serve, my teams and lead my teams. But I also have the opportunity to lead people and build teams and serve, my teams. That combination of science, technology, engineering, linked to this space flight mission, while as part of my job, I have the key, responsibility of helping a team and building this team and ensuring that I have a highly performing team so that we make sure that we are successful. That's one of the most amazing aspects of what I am doing right now. And of course, working on Mars projects and the moon, that has also been a very dynamic experience. In the mornings, I may be thinking about the moon, and then in the afternoon, I need to switch gears and start thinking about Mars. So very, very dynamic, type of job. I never get bored.
That's awesome. Something that I think is particularly interesting to all folks. I mean, I love NASA. Everyone here, I think, loves NASA and is really inspired by its space science missions. And I think one of the things I'm most impressed at is they're able to accomplish such feats over a really long time period. And this, brings up this role of why we need really good project management. Can you remind our viewers how long it's expected to take from doing this Mars sample return? Like when we're talking about planning these things, what is the potential timeline for getting these artifacts or these samples back here on Earth?
Really, really, really good question. So scientists at NASA Glenn started designing these tires back in 2009. In 2013 is when they determined, right, or made discoveries in terms of materials, better materials for this type of Mars applications. So we are talking about decades of research and work that now materialize in an engineering development effort, because now we understand these systems and these materials, and we are now in the stage or phase of designing these systems or subsystems for rovers. Perseverance is there. Our mission, there will be a launch window in 2026. So we are working really hard to see if we can send that first Mars sample return mission around 2026. And it will take 2 years, to travel the vacuum space, get to Mars, and 2 more years for like 1 year to accomplish, the Fetch rover mission, and then the rest of like the other next year or so to then do the sample return or the return of samples back to Earth. So we are talking about decades, right? And with this Mars sample return, we are just starting the science mission with Perseverance. It's 2021, so we can expect samples to be brought back to Earth around 2030, 2031.
And I know we'll all be very excited when that happens. I think, it takes so long to feel confident in the results, and it takes so long to develop these things, but it is just incredible that NASA continues to do it. And as you mentioned, it was just so exciting seeing the successful landing of the Perseverance rover recently, and thinking about what opportunities it's going to allow us to have in this next generation of space exploration. And of course, these analog missions like HiSeas play such a crucial role in establishing how we would go about even starting the basics of living in another place or inhabiting another extreme environment in the solar system. Can you tell us 2 things about HiSeas? We're getting a lot of questions about HiSeas. Something that surprised you about HiSeas that you didn't expect, and something that you found particularly challenging. Maybe those are related, maybe those aren't.
Okay, cool. So something that surprised me, it surprised me that the food was actually good. I was expecting the freeze-dried food to be really, really, really bad, but so much improvement in that area of space foods, or like camping or hiking meals, or meals for hikers, right? There has been so much optimization of these food systems that you can indeed enjoy a meal made of these dehydrated ingredients. So that was a really, really nice surprise. At the personal level, I was also very surprised at just realizing that, oh my goodness, I can actually do this. I can actually be in confinement and isolation with people and still have a good time and contribute to research. So seeing that part of me, that was a question mark I had. I was like, that was a question. I didn't know how I was going to respond to that extreme environment in isolation. I was like, wow, what if I don't do that well? So that was a really positive surprise as well. One of the most challenging things was, of course, communication, like with the limited communication with family, with friends, because that adds in those stressful, conditions of confinement and isolation. You need to be very good at controlling where your thoughts go, right? Where your mind goes. And what I'm trying to say with this is that because of the lack of communication, sometimes, during our free times, then I would start wondering about, okay, how is my family doing? And then I would maybe there were days that I started getting too overwhelmed with worries about what if something happens and I am so far away, or I don't hear about what is happening, right? So it required a lot of self-discipline to not let those fears and thoughts, overwhelm you, and just be focused on the mission and hopeful that things were going to be okay. But certainly it reveals one of the what still is one of the main challenges when we think about sending humans to Mars is the psychological aspects and the challenges associated with having that part of humanity so far away from Earth.
Absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, so many people got a little bit of a taste of isolation just as a result of having to endure the pandemic. And we saw how hard it was for so many people. And so it really brings to mind the challenges of what it's going to take for us to do this for extended periods of time, particularly if someone needs to be transported to Mars or somewhere in the solar system or needs to stay there for a long period of time. I don't think that everyone wanted to sign up for this little experiment, but we all got to understand just how important communicating with one another and having access to one another and how much of a challenge it is to overcome those issues in the future. We have so many questions about young folks who want to get in the field and want to have a career like you. And so I have a couple questions on that. What would you recommend to someone who's a high school student and in Puerto Rico or in Hawaii and maybe doesn't always get to the mainland? What advice would you give them if they want to have a career similar to yours?
Yes. So the first piece of advice that I will provide is don't, and this applies to those of you that are in high school, but if there are kids in elementary school or middle school that are listening to me, this is the advice I can give to you. It's never too early to reach out to the professional community. So this is the time. It's now. It's now the time for you to start reaching out, sending an email, or contacting, even in social media, contacting professionals in the field, letting them know about your interests. Start asking questions. Start asking questions to NASA engineers, NASA chemists, NASA microbiologists, etc., and any type of professional, right, in the space sector, so that in that way, you explore opportunities and better define your passion. But that proactive approach of reaching out, start working those professional networks. You are never too young to do that. You can start building your professional networks now. That will open up opportunities. And I have said, like, one of the keys or aspects of success for me was I started seeing more space opportunities, coming my way when I started sharing with the world, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is where I want to contribute. So don't be shy. Never be shy to share your passions and your desires and dreams with others.
Yes, that's beautiful. It's really nice to hear you say that. And I think this is valuable advice for all of us, right? It's never too early to move forward and take steps on something you're excited about. We have a couple more specific questions about preparing for a career in astronomy and NASA and aerospace. And so someone asked if there are certain degrees that are most practical if you want to work at NASA.
Oh, it depends on what you want to do. It depends. My experience has been, like I am a scientist by training, but I am all day surrounded by engineers. So if you are still, uncertain about a career path, I would highly encourage to explore engineering careers. Mechanical, if you want to work with rovers, mechanical engineering would be a really good path to follow. Aerospace engineering as well. But the most important thing is try to find what really resonates with you. Okay. That doesn't mean that perhaps let's say you start a career, a mechanical engineering degree at the university, and let's say that you are certain that your dream is to work with rovers, for example. Don't give up because it's difficult. So a STEM career is going to be tough. It was tough for me. There were times where I doubt myself. There were times where I am like, okay, I don't know if this fits me. But it's very important that if you really have a dream, stick with that dream. Stick with that, like with the end goal, and try to overcome the challenges. I just need to reassure everyone that is listening, a STEM career is not easy for most people. For most people, it's not easy. It will be the perseverance, the resilience, that you exercise during your college years, during your studies, what will take you to the other side.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I do think that there is this common misconception that in order to be a successful scientist or to be a successful engineer, you need to be the best. And if you don't start out at the best, there's no point in trying. And you re-emphasizing that it really is about perseverance, that it is going to be tough, but that it's not tough is not a reason to not do it. Or because it's tough is not a reason not to do it, I think is really valuable.
Yeah. I mean, telling yourself that you need to be the best is going to be frustrating. You will always find people that are better than you. I think part of the success is just developing a mindset, that a scientific mindset, right? We need to learn how to learn. That's like, how I would put it. Like, if we learn how to learn new things, you can do anything. And that's what I discovered in my career. I learned how to learn new things when new opportunities, like came my way and I had to explore other career fields. And that would be the key, but it requires the main characteristic for success is perseverance, for sure.
Absolutely. So this is a question that I think depends on the person, and we know that you have applied to be an astronaut. So if you had the opportunity, would you rather go to the moon or Mars? And would you even consider going somewhere as far away as Mars?
I will go to Mars. I will go to Mars. Of course. If they offer me to go to the moon, I will go to the moon. Yeah, in a heartbeat. But I am driven. Yajaira is more like I am more attracted to very far away places. I am attracted to like just explore what has not been explored yet. And I have been in love with Mars for a very long time. So if I need to choose, I will say Mars.
That is awesome. And for our final question, we've just had so many people ask this, so I'm hoping you can answer this.
Yeah.
If you want to get an internship at your lab or internship at NASA, what recommendations do you have? Do they exist? And how would you apply?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Are there internships at NASA that undergrads and high schoolers can apply for?
Yes.
And any advice for applying for those?
Okay.
Or any tips? Yeah.
Lots of them. So there are different programs, internship programs that NASA has. So there is one that is the NASA Pathways. That's a very popular one, competitive one, but it's one that for the most part, what I have seen is that undergraduates that start in NASA Pathway and do a good job, they are securing their future at NASA. So try to look for those. If you are in undergrad, try to look for those NASA Pathways opportunities to work for NASA. Other opportunities as well available, like for graduate students. Yes, there are grants and scholarships, NASA scholarships, that allow graduate students to also work at NASA centers and do part of their graduate studies and research at NASA centers. So that's another way to get practical experience and get your foot in the agency. But there are several different types of internship programs. Also, internships focus on minority institutions as well. So embrace those. Those are there for you, and they are there because NASA realizes and understands and values the need to increase and diversify the workforce, because a diverse workforce, we saw it with Perseverance. A diverse team is a very innovative team. So look for those as well if they suit you, right? Yes, and in the process of preparing for it, I would say I really admired undergraduate students that I have had the pleasure to meet, that in their quest, to get these opportunities at NASA, they have engaged at their schools with NASA competitions, like NASA challenges. NASA has lots of student challenges and student competitions where you can work with a team at your school, and in a proposal or a mission concept, engage with those. Let's say that you are getting rejections from internships, engage in those type of opportunities, right, with NASA, because those can also be added to your resume and will certainly increase your chances of being selected in a future internship. I have seen it with undergraduates. They have been very successful at creating those opportunities with these type of competitions and team projects, and then having successful offers for internships.
That is awesome. I hope everyone who is listening was taking down notes. Thank you so much, Dr. Sierra, for this incredible presentation, for telling us about your science path, and for taking the time to be here and answer all of our questions.
Thank you very much. I hope that people enjoy it.
This was awesome. We have so many countless that are coming in that are just saying, amazing, amazing. This was great. Thank you. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. Everyone really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. And for everyone who's tuning in, thank you so much for being here. A huge mahalo to Pisces for putting on this really wonderful outreach opportunity. Thank you to the Hawaii Science and Technology Museum and Microsoft for sponsoring this wonderful outreach event all week. Again, my name is Mimi Fuchs. A big mahalo to Dr. Sierra. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you have time, a QR code and a link is going to pop up on the screen. We would love for you to provide any feedback. We want to make these outreach experiences rich for all of you. So please fill it out if you get a chance. And again, mahalo for tuning in today. And if you tuned in to any of our sessions earlier in the week. It's never a see you goodbye. It's always a hui ho. So I hope to see you at our next outreach event. Bye, guys.
Mahalo, bye.